Hey everybody, it's Emily at Arg Schooling, and welcome back to another episode of Homeschool Tidbits. Welcome back to Build Your Library's Homeschool Tidbits. Today we're doing episode 18, and we're talking about thought-provoking read-alouds. In this weekly video series, I'll delve briefly into a topic related to homeschooling, and I'll share some of my knowledge with you as a longtime homeschooling mother of 4 children. 3 of them have graduated, and 1 who's graduated college. So, like I said, today I want to talk about thought-provoking literature. I have loved reading aloud to my children. Ever since my oldest daughter was born 23 years, I've been reading aloud for 23 years. At first, it was simply a way to foster a love of stories and books in general. Like, I want my children to love books. And then eventually, one of the best reasons became introducing them to books and ideas that they might not have discovered on their own. And we then would talk about the story and the ideas within. I really love sharing thought-provoking literature with them. Living books, as we've discussed numerous times, are great for this. The more well-written, engaging, and memorable a story was, the deeper and more involved our discussions became. So today, I wanted to do a recommendations video. I'm going to be recommending some books to you that'll make you and your children think long after you've closed the book. These books are going to stick with you and hopefully be a great starting point for building great discussions in your homeschool. The first 4 books I'm going to show you are middle grade selections, and so they're appropriate for ages around 8 to 12. And the final book I'm going to show is a young adult title, and so that is best for ages 12 and up. Of course, this is all subjective. Younger listeners can benefit from listening in to books read to your older children, so use your discretion. The first book I want to talk about today is Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. I've read this book numerous times at various stages in my life and in homeschooling, and all 4 of my children have enjoyed it. This story is all about immortality and what that means, really. Winnie meets a strange family who lives out in the woods, only to discover that they are going to live forever. I love the questions this book poses. On the surface, immortality sounds great, right? You'll never get sick, you'll never die, you can never be hurt. But do you really want to live forever? So many pros and cons to discuss in this story. My youngest and I read it about 3 years ago, and she still talks about it today. Yonder by Alice Standish is a brand new release, so technically this has not been read aloud to my kids yet, but I'm gonna. This came out on May 10th, and I just read and reviewed it for our History Book by Book website. I'll leave a link down below if you want to check that out. This is a story set during World War II on the American home front, and it asks us to consider, what does it mean to be a hero? Is it grand gestures? Is it being fearless? Or is it simply standing up for what you think is right and true, even if no one else does? This story had so many messages and layers and so many things that I was sure would lead to great discussion. This story talks about segregation, about the Holocaust, and particularly the fact that people in America were aware that it was happening but chose not to intervene. It talks about patriotism and war, and it paints a vivid portrait of American life in the 1940s South. This is such a fabulous book, and I cannot wait to share it with my youngest. The next book I want to talk about is My Name Is Not Easy by Debbie Dahl Edwardson. This is a story about children in a Catholic boarding school in Alaska around the 1960s. Most of the students in the school and in the story were indigenous peoples native to Alaska. What I found so thought-provoking about this story, and what led us to great discussions, is that it gives a very realistic picture of what life in those schools might have been like. You might hear in passing that indigenous children were sent to boarding schools and forced to assimilate, but reading a story about it really puts you in their shoes. And it led us to want to learn more about why this happened and how long it had been going on. And we also found all the information about the Inupiaq and life on the tundra to be really, really fascinating. Next is a book my oldest recommended for this discussion. When I told her what I was doing, she said this book should be in there. So, The Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. What's more thought-provoking than a fun mystery? This is such a fun book, and it's full of puzzles and riddles and adventures and a mystery full of twists and turns. 4 children are asked to go on a secret mission that only the most intelligent and inquisitive can complete. It's not going to change your child's worldview necessarily. This isn't that kind of a thought-provoking book, but it will give them a lot to talk about and discuss and solve. Sometimes that's what kids need, a fun story that makes them think about the mysteries within. And if they enjoy this book, it is a series, so there are more books to read about these characters. And the last book I want to talk about today is one that I think about frequently. And though it has been many years since I've read it. Eva by Peter Dickinson is a story that asks us to consider, can science go too far? And also, how closely related are we to chimpanzees? A 13-year-old girl is in a horrific accident, and when she awakens, she finds herself in the hospital, and she feels like something's different. Something has changed, but no one will explain it to her just yet. This story is set in a near future in which the world has become so industrialized that there are no more wild animals. All that are left are living in reserves under the control of scientists. Eva's parents are scientists who work with chimpanzees. So she's grown up around these animals, but what happens when science has decided to keep her alive by putting her consciousness and her brain into the body of a chimpanzee? This story haunts me. The world that the author created feels like it's pretty plausible. It paints a pretty realistic portrait of what our future might look like. And so I think about it often because, of course, it asks the perennial question, just because you can, should you? If you found this video helpful, I hope you'll check out Build Your Library curriculum. Build Your Library is a secular, literature-rich homeschool curriculum inspired by Charlotte Mason's philosophy of education. Based on nearly 20 years of homeschooling, I created the curriculum that I wish I'd had when I'd started homeschooling my children. I have spent thousands of hours cultivating the best literature to enhance your child's studies. Our lesson plans make homeschooling simple. Just open up our lesson plans, gather your books, and go. Our easy-to-use lesson plans include everything you need to homeschool. Just add math. Choose from our full year K-12 levels, as well as our fun topical unit studies and lit bites. With Build Your Library, you will cultivate a home library filled with captivating literature and raise children who will become lifelong learners. So snuggle up with our lesson plans in a good book or 3 and have your best homeschool year ever. And I also want to point out that today, Friday the 27th through Monday the 30th, we are having our Memorial Day flash sale where you can take 20% off of all our digital lesson plans and products. So I'm going to leave a link down below with all the information you need to take advantage, so be sure to check that out. So tell me, what are your favorite thought-provoking read-alouds? Let me know in the comments down below and we can chat about it. I hope you found this tidbit helpful. Be sure to come back next week for more homeschooling inspiration. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.